I'll take care of her in that way, and she'll take care of me in another way. Why are you pretending that offends you when your relationship with women in your own personal life doesn't even exist? And if it does, it's awful.
I'll tell you what's going to happen now. As we're agreeing and talking now, some people, especially some feminist people that are influenced by feminism within the Muslim community, say, look, this is exactly what we feared. Yeah. He's not holding him to account. He's not speaking to him about the wild statements. Yeah. The truth is, I'll say this: I don't actually feel like I need to judge you, because quite frankly, Allah has already wiped away your sins. Yeah. Any statement that you made before about women, or anything that you've done with women before, once again, it's not my business to judge you upon that. Yep. So that should be the Islamic position. However, let's say for the wider community, sure, right? Because at the end of the day, we do want you to kind of not reintegrate, especially not in the matrix. Now, alhamdulillah, you're out of the matrix, let's say, fully out of it. Islam is totally out of the matrix. That's why they hate it so much. Yep. Some of the comments that you've made, I haven't got a list of them. What are some of the comments that they accuse you of making, and what is the context of these comments?
Yeah, so the two that they accuse me of most is where I said a woman is a man's property, which is the first one. Yeah. And the second one that they try and get me with is where I said a woman should bear some responsibility for being sexually assaulted. Both of them are massively taken out of context. I'd like to explain them. Right. When I said about a woman being a man's property, I was talking about the idea of biblical marriage at the time, Christian marriage. I was saying that the man walks, the father walks the bride down the aisle, gives her to the groom, she takes his last name, and he is now responsible for protecting and providing for her till death do them part. She joins his family, right? She belongs to him. Oh no! So you're saying she's property? I'm saying she belongs to him.
All right. So it's a semantical issue.
It's a semantic issue, correct?
Yeah. So you're not necessarily saying that he can buy and sell her.
Absolutely not. I'm saying that he is responsible for her, and he must protect and provide for her. That's this one. But I never even said the word property. They said the word property at me.
Really?
Right. So I said that she belongs to him.
Because the exchange I saw is between you and Piers Morgan.
Oh yeah.
And he was just being obnoxious. I don't even know how. You can see the man was insecure. Yeah. That's how I psychoanalyze him. I'm not, a psychiatrist, but I think he's just insecure. He felt like he had something to prove. He was, he's of a certain age, a certain weight, a certain disposition, and there's people, when they see you and him together, that's enough of a victory for you and enough of a loss for him, just to see you two, side by side. But as his face was becoming red like Peppa Pig, and he was getting more and more angry and interjecting every second, he was mentioning these points. This is the only thing that, from my perspective, I felt, okay, maybe he has a point here. Sure. But as you've explained it, if you mean by property X, Y, and Z, but you don't actually mean property then potentially we say, look, this is not the best wording. Yeah. It's not the best wording.
Absolutely.
And what you didn't mean by that is, she's some kind of commodity and object.
Correct. Absolutely not. In fact, quite the opposite. I was trying to say how important she is and how she must be protected and provided for. Okay. And it was taken completely out of context and weaponized against me. And it's very similar with the other comment of how women should bear some personal responsibility for being sexually assaulted. I'm not saying in 100% of cases that sexual assault couldn't have been prevented. I'm not saying sexual assault should happen. In fact, I'd argue that I'm more strict on the idea of rape than the laws. I think these people should be executed. I think it's disgusting, completely and utterly disgusting. However, I think it is asinine for us as a society to sit here and pretend that if a woman goes out, takes drugs with a man she doesn't know, goes to his house without telling her brother or her father or telling anybody, and puts herself in a position of absolute vulnerability, that she has zero responsibility. So it shouldn't happen to her. Of course. It's disgusting. Yeah, but also, I shouldn't get robbed if I walk down the street with $1 million in the middle of the night. So but it can. So I must think ahead.
What you're effectively saying is that if there are certain situations where the probability of sexual assault for women increase. In fact, for example, the WHO itself, I was looking at, they had this whole, probably the most compendious thing on rape and sexual assault, and they were talking about different countries, and the one thing that they said, which the West has more than other places, is stranger rape. And actually, one of the reasons why could very well be because of this culture of intoxications, of clubbing and these kinds of things. So it increases the probability, I think. It's a very reasonable argument to say, well, this increases the possibility of stranger rape. Now, obviously, they're going to come back and say, but the way you said it,
Of course they're going to do
It's
it.
victim blaming.
But they're going to say it's victim blaming, and they're saying I'm going to be advocating for rape, and they're going to be saying
well,
I said
that's-
it's okay,
yeah,
which is
that's
all
unfair.
garbage. It's all nonsense.
Yeah.
I'm trying to explain to
Yeah.
people in a very realistic fashion that we live in a world which is not ideal. We live in a world where everybody understands that stealing is wrong, but some people still steal. This is why we lock our cars and lock our houses. This is why we protect our certain assets and our money. This is why I will not walk down the street with a gold watch in London at 3 a.m. by myself, because I don't want to put myself in a position where there's a higher probability of something bad happening to me. Yeah. And I'm just saying that when it comes to this one particular crime, because it's so heinous, and it is heinous, absolutely, and certainly every perpetrator should face the absolute full punishment from not only the law, but God himself. But they sit and pretend that there's zero personal responsibility involved. And I'm just saying that there are some scenarios, not all, but in some scenarios, the woman has made it so easy for something bad to happen to her. And I'm saying we should teach them not to do that so that we can protect them. And the reason this whole subject came up is because I was talking about if I'm a man and I'm responsible for my woman and I want to protect her, and somehow we got on the subject of rape, and this was on a podcast 3 or 4 years ago. I said, the number one way I can protect my woman besides being beside her is teaching her to make smart decisions when I'm not around and making sure she's smart and doesn't put herself in bad positions. And this feminist was saying, yeah, but people shouldn't rape. I was like, I agree. People shouldn't steal. People shouldn't do a lot of things, but you still have to protect yourself and have some personal responsibility. And the feminists' argument against it was that, no, we need to teach men not to rape. Some asinine, idealistic fairy tale land where we're going to go around and convince every man on earth to never rape again. As if we haven't been trying to convince people not to steal since the dawn of human time. It's stupid.
I think at the base of what you're saying is basically a concern that, look, if you follow this advice, you'll get the best results. It's very, very pragmatic advice.
Absolutely.
But what is being twisted as actually this guy is a misogynist, which, by the way, the definition of they haven't even agreed on.
Correct.
And this guy believes X, Y, and Z, and they're taking you out of context. The problem here is, for example, with rape, actually, interestingly, I was speaking to a lawyer. I'm not sure if the case is still the case in the UK.
Yep.
But I don't think you can actually be convicted of rape if you're a woman to a man. I think only a woman can be convicted.
Which is funny enough. Another thing that was interesting when I was arguing this point, I was arguing it saying, listen, you've made this a gendered argument because you're a feminist. 29% of rape cases in UK are male on male. And I'll say the same thing to a man. Don't go, do drugs, become intoxicated, go back home with someone you don't know, and put yourself in a position to be raped, stabbed, killed, murdered, whatever it is, right? And the feminists who were arguing against me goes, oh, but you don't understand male privilege. You get to walk around safe at night without worry. I was like, listen, my dear, you have no idea what it is to be a man. You have no idea. You think we walk around London in the middle of the night willy-nilly with no concerns? They will kill us for the piece of metal on our wrist. Like, you think we're just walking around thinking doop-de-doo? No. Absolutely not. Yeah. I'd actually argue that in certain scenarios, in certain places in the Western world, it's more dangerous to walk alone as a man than a woman. You know, so it's absolutely asinine. They have this idealistic worldview that everything's perfect for men and everything's men's fault, and women have no personal responsibility. And no matter what a woman does, there's no way she could be possibly involved, even 1% her fault at all.
Yeah, but on this point of the